Here.
Okay, adequate notice of this meeting has been
Posted at Borough Hall.
filed with the borough clerk and mailed to the Esmond Box office. Time to the Star Ledger. This meeting is being tape recorded, and in the event the applicant uses the service of a court reporter to transcribe the tapes, the board requires a copy of the transcript. We will break at about 8 p.m. for deliberation. Testimony heard thus far. The conference room is the first floor. Public is invited to attend. However, discussions between board members and the public is not permitted at that time. No new cases will be heard after 9 p.m. for the bank. In the policy cutoff hour of 9:30 for its hearings. Any applicants not heard this evening will be carried over to the next scheduled meeting. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. We got agenda items. Meeting minutes.
And Tori? Oh,
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to accept them.
I'll second. Dan Tori,
Yes.
Herman Maz,
Yes.
Eileen Hogan,
Yes.
Paul Cagnon,
Yes.
Amanda Doremus, Chris Havens.
Yes. Okay, we have a resolution of approval for 22 Wallace Street.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that was application last time that was approved for reconstruction of a garage on the site, and the conditions of note were compliance with Shauna's review memorandum, compliance with all prevailing building and construction code requirements, replacement garage not to be utilized as living space, no plumbing service, water service, or sewer service to the garage, but electrical service is permitted. No exterior lighting associated with that proposed new garage, no adverse light spillover, range for all elements of the garage, including the foundation footings to be constructed and installed on the applicant's property, as obviously the zoning board cannot grant relief to install any improvements on an adjacent property. And I think that was the gist of it. If that's acceptable, we can adopt that. And I had I think I spelled somebody's name wrong, one of the witnesses, so we can adopt that as modified if that's acceptable to the board.
Okay, somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll approve it.
I'll second.
And election.
Oh, sorry.
Dan Tori,
Yes.
Herman Maz,
Yes.
Eileen Hogan,
Yes.
Paul Cagnon,
Yes.
Amanda Doremus,
Yes.
Chris Havens.
Okay, next we have 1 Berry Street.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you'll recall that that was the last meeting where we all learned about isolated, undersized lot cases and financial implications associated with buying and selling property. So Shauna, Kevin Asadi, the applicant's attorney, sent a letter today asking for an adjournment. I guess they had ordered appraisals between them, and they just received them. And there were some things that they wanted to adjust or have adjusted or thought should be more carefully reviewed. So they asked to be carried, and importantly, they consented. The applicant consented to extend the time frame within which the board has to act. So Shauna, the request is to carry this until
The December 7th meeting.
December 7th. So if that's okay with you all, we can have a motion to carry the 1 Berry Street Jacob Morales application to December 7th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. without the need for any further public notice.
I'll make a motion to carry.
I'll second.
Yeah, you can do it all in favor on this one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Ray wasn't here that night?
No.
So can you make a motion?
Does it matter?
To carry it.
Carry it?
I just-
Is that all right?
Motion to
Yeah,
carry.
okay.
No, but that's a good catch. And the other thing is, we should probably make sure that when this application comes back, at least if it hasn't been done, give the not the transcripts, the hearing date to anyone who wasn't here at the last time, if they want to participate. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have 7476 Monmouth Street.
Okay, and as the applicant team comes forward, we'll just do a couple of things. We're gonna swear in Ed Herman, you are our board engineer, and Shauna, you are the director of planning and zoning, Shauna Ebanks. Do you both swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge, to help you God?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you and if it's okay with the applicant's team, John, I want to just give a little procedural history here, okay? So, Mr. Chairman, this is, if it's okay, take a few minutes just to, since we have a newly constituted board and many new board members, and even for the benefit of our veteran board members and members of the public, want to take a few minutes to speak about some procedural matters associated with this massage school application. It's not our typical approve a site plan and approve or deny a variance application. So the process I'm going to describe is very standard, and it's authorized under law and it's authorized under our ordinances, but it's not necessarily one that we deal with all the time. So I'd just like to take a few minutes to just give the board and the public an overall view of where I think we're going to go. And John Anderson here is the attorney for the applicant, and I don't want to steal his thunder. I don't want to hijack his legal arguments, and I don't want to build his case or refute his case. So I just want to set, the thing in motion. And obviously, I'm not going to be giving any factual information. That's all John and his clients will come. And then if John has any issues with what I'm saying, he's going to say, and we'll clarify what needs to be done. So finally, for the record, Mr. Anderson will, as I said, certainly have an opportunity to say he agrees with me, or he doesn't agree with me, or he agrees with some of the stuff we said. So anyway, in that, this is only our third or fourth or fifth hearing as a newly constituted board under our new form of government. So thus far at our prior meetings, we've mostly just had the traditional approve or deny an application. And this is going to be slightly different. So tonight we have an appeal of it's a slightly different animal, so to speak. So we start off with some very basic facts of life in our zoning world. So every time someone submits a zoning permit to the Borough of Red Bank, Shauna here, our Director of Community Development and who acts as our zoning officer, has to approve it or deny it. And sitting on this board, sometimes we get the impression that the only permits that she has to issue are the ones that turn into applications before us. But Shauna, that would be absolutely positively false. You have millions of permits that you deal with all the time. So imagine if you want to build a single family home and it all conforms, you submit a zoning permit and Shauna signs off on it administratively, doesn't have to come here, and then it goes through the other cycles of that third floor upstairs of all the things that they have to do. If you wanted to build a commercial property in a residential zone, Shauna would not sign off on it. She'd say, hey, this is denied. You need to get use variance approval from the zoning board. And that is in fact the applicant's ticket to come forward. But anyway, rule 101 of the zoning world is every time the zoning officer or her designee issues what they call an order, a directive, a development permit application, there is a right for any aggrieved individual to appeal that decision. By law, they have a right, there's a time frame for it, and by law, they appeal it to this board. So by statute, one of our specific powers is to hear and decide appeals of decisions that that the administrative officer has made. In the past, years and years ago, I remember we had, even prior to Shauna's time, we had an appeal, someone appealed whether H&R Block was a professional office. I know we had an appeal once dealing with the height allowable height in the waterfront development zone, which I think just sort of, came full circle. And Shauna, fairly recently, we had, I think with Ms. Anderson, we had an appeal on a dispensary issue. And in those situations, anyway, that's just a totally standard process. So now at issue here, we have the massage school representatives. They submitted a development permit application to operate a massage school in the CCD2 zone. And again, I don't want to steal Shauna's ammunition, but I think the applicant said, hey, the CCD2 zone allows and permits instructional schools. And the applicant says, we're an instructional school, so Shauna, why don't you just sign off on this administratively? And Shauna, I think, and we'll obviously have her testify in a little bit, she said, hey, maybe it's not so fast. Yes, an instructional school is a permitted use, but there's also a provision, Sean, I think in the CCD2 zone that says massage parlors are not permitted or prohibited.
Yes.
So in my mind, speaking for Shauna, I think in Shauna's mind, she was saying, hey, so is this a permitted use? Is it a prohibited use? Is an instructional school, is that, does the massage parlor count as that? Is it a massage parlor? It is a massage therapy? Is it just classes? Is there any, details that she needs? Is, Shauna's thinking, is the applicant 100% right? Are they 50% right? Are they only right if there's XYZ conditions that are applied? So what does does the ordinance define massage parlor, and what are the operational details and parameters? And Shauna also thinks to herself, hey, is this relevant? Is it not relevant? Is it maybe relevant? So against that, typically the zoning officer says, I don't like to go too far out on a ledge. I generally like to stay within the corners and the exact language of the ordinance. So we'll hear this from Shauna, but I got the impression that this is something that Shauna felt the need to deny and let the board hear it out after they hear the testimony that Mr. Anderson is going to solicit. So as I understand it, that's what happened here. And again, Mr. Anderson and Shauna will certainly confirm that. So against that backdrop, we're here tonight, and I promise we're getting to the end. So as is standard, John Anderson submitted this this application, and it's sort of what we call a 2-for-1 type of application. So one, he wants to appeal Shauna's decision as to whether or not the massage school is a permitted use in the CCD2 zone, and testimony will be permitted. And let's just say, for the purposes of argument, that you all, or a majority of you all, say you agree that the massage school is an instructional class, which is permitted. That pretty much, and so in that situation, you would vote to overturn or reverse Shauna's decision, and that sort of ends it. We would then adopt a resolution, and Mr. Anderson and his client will go up to the 3rd floor and process the next part of the zoning and construction and building world. And so that's pretty much, or you might say, after you hear everything, that you're going to say you decide to affirm Shauna's decision, and then you go to part 2. I said it was a 2-for-1. If you affirm Shauna's decision, we would be in essence saying that the massage school is not a permitted, or is not an instructional class, and it's not permitted use, and therefore use variance relief is necessary. And at that point, whether it's tonight or another time, John Anderson would then present testimony in support of the use variance application. So that's where we are. Mr. Anderson noticed for both of those possibilities. We call it noticing in alternative relief. So we thank him for that. And just a couple real quick caveats. And I promise they'll be quick. Number one, we don't have to say this, but we always say it. Shauna is awesome. And Mr. Chairman, I see here, I wrote capital letters awesome, and I wrote 5 exclamation points. I'm going to do 6 because she's that awesome. But the reason we say that is we don't have to worry about hurting Shauna's feelings. If we affirm her decisions, she's not going to stand outside and give us high fives and say we validated her existence. And likewise, if we reverse her decision, she's not going to be depressed, upset, or frustrated. And she's still going to be our friend, and she's still going to be the awesome administrator that she is. But I am speaking for Shauna on this, and I actually did call her today and make sure she was okay for me saying this, because I think she is not committed or emotionally vested in any particular outcome in this appeal. And I don't mean this in a bad or pejorative way, but she doesn't care what your answer is or what your response is. She, like all good directors of planning and community development, she just wants to make sure that you all make a fully informed decision. And we always give Shauna a big thumbs up for that. And last thing is on the caveat, a staple of every other application, pretty much every other application that we do, when we say, hey, we're approving it, or we're denying it, or we're approving it with conditions, we always say, hey, this is not a precedent. Just because we granted one variance doesn't mean we have to grant the next woman a variance, or just because we denied this one doesn't mean we have to deny it for the next guy. But it does get a little bit different in this scenario. So let's just say, after all the hearing, the testimony evidence presented, that you all rule that a massage school is a permitted use. Shauna, in dealing with future unrelated applications, can and certainly will rely on the board's determination. So if we say XYZ use is permitted, Shauna can rely on that in the future, unless the Borough Council adopts a different or controlling or clarifying ordinance. So anyway, in conclusion, that's my story. We're going to, we'll go through a lot of the twists and turns, but I just wanted to go through that. Again, sorry for the delay, but just because this is in many respects a newly constituted board, I just wanted to do that. So against that very long introduction, we say good evening to Mr. Anderson and his team.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you all. Don Anderson, a law firm of San Philip Milne, on behalf of the applicant, Jeff Clark and JCCJ Massage School LLC. Mr. Kennedy, I think you already alluded to the fact that service was in order. Is that accurate?
Yes, and for the record, is there anyone here who had any questions or comments or concerns regarding the notice? Okay, I don't see any. And just for the record, the board secretary and Sean as and office and myself did review the notice and found everything to be in order. So it'd be my opinion that we have jurisdiction to proceed.
All right, very good.
Mr. Anderson, can you move the mic a little closer?
Yes, certainly.
Great.
Is that better? So we're dealing with the westerly first floor unit, 7476 Monmouth Street. Most of you all are going to know it as the building that has LC subs in it, just right across the street here. And as Mr. Kennedy said, what we're looking to do is a massage school. It's like an open concept floor plan, so there's not like individual rooms where people are going to be getting massages for pay. There's one big open room with tables. We have an architect and planner here that will show you like a floor plan, so that you know that everybody's going to be coming in. They're going to be doing traditional book learning, as well as like kind of hands-on learning in massage therapy. And the goal is at the end of the course, you get licensed in the state of New Jersey as a massage therapist. So it's essentially a vocational training thing. You're not going to have members of the public coming in, paying a fee, and having a licensed massage therapist give them a massage treatment of any sort. It's all trainees and instruction-based learning. So for that reason, we do think we fit more in the category of an instruction school, something that's permitted in the zone, and less in the category of a massage parlor. You don't define massage parlor in your ordinance. I had to look it up in the dictionary. I can quote it to you. As you might suspect, it's a slightly antiquated definition. It's from 1913, Webster's Dictionary. An establishment that provides massage treatments and also one offering sexual services in addition to or in lieu of massage. So certainly not going to be providing any sexual services, and we're not going to be providing massage treatment for pay. We're going to be providing instruction in the art of massage therapy. We'll present some operational testimony so you can get comfortable with exactly how it's going to operate, how many instructors, hours of operation, things of that nature, get a better flavor for it. And then we do have the planner here. And at the end, we'll be looking for one of two things. Either your agreement that definitionally we're correct and we're a personal service establishment that's offering instruction and therefore permitted, Or if you disagree with us and you agree with Ms. Ebanks, then we would be looking to nonetheless do the use. And we would be asking you to grant the D1 use variance to allow us to do a use which might not otherwise be permitted in the zone. And in that case, we'd be having to show you some special reasons. You know, why is it that that site's particularly suited for this type of use? Without stealing my planner's thunder, I do think we're particularly suited for at least two reasons. One is my client already owns and operates the Woodhouse Spa on Broad Street. It's in the basement of what used to be the Ocean First building, like right at the top of Mama Street. And so there's a crossover or synergy that she's proposing between her spa and between this instructional training classroom type setting. She's going to have people that are already licensed that work at her spa teaching at the instructional facility. And then folks that do become licensed and trained would have the opportunity to do some clinical work down the street at Woodhouse and maybe even get a job there ultimately after they passed the program and gotten their licensure. So just in terms of location, it's excellent. It's great for my client to have the two businesses just a couple blocks away from one another. Besides that, we have students coming to the place. Not all students can have cars. We have the advantage of being on a bus line. We are next to Highway 35 and the municipal parking lot for those who do have cars, and we're a short walk from the train station. So pretty accommodating to students coming in a variety of different needs. We should probably mark a few exhibits. Just
Sure. So what we'll do is we'll mark as A1 is the applicant's intent to proceed. A2 is the denial letter dated September 5th, 2023. A3 is the narrative of intent. A4 is the disclosure of ownership. And I'm going to say A5 is Shauna Ebanks review memorandum dated October 31st, 2023. And I think that is it. And then just for the record, John, so we can do an internal conflict check. I know I see here Jennifer Clark and I see ACCJ Massage School LLC, which I understand is a prospective tenant. And I see the owner of the property is Patricia Reckington. Reddington.
Patricia Reddington's the owner.
Okay.
Jennifer seated to my left, and she's the sole owner of ACCJ.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen of the board, hearing those names, any issues, questions, comments, concerns about conflicts? None. Great.
I just have one or two others, if it's all marked now, just so that we can streamline things. Did not necessarily hear the notice of appeal. Can we do that as A6?
Sure.
You haven't seen yet, but we'll hand out to you a floor plan or a schematic design prepared by SOME Architects at O'Neill. And that's dated 11/2/2023. Do that as A7. And for what it's worth, you may not even see it. We have just a photo board with 3 photos of the facade of the building. It'll be up to Mr. O'Neill whether he shows it to you or not. Do that as A8.
All right, so if we mark it, let's see it. So A8 is a photo board containing 3 photographs of the subject property. Okay, and you can show it to us later on.
Yeah, we have a need, so we'll put it up. And I'll pass this out to y'all.
All right, and those pictures were taken by Mr. O'Neill's office?
Actually by mine, but I think
Okay.
we'll testify that he's familiar with the building.
Very good.
It's right across the street.
Thank you. This is A7.
Real quick, before we declare this operations, we're not proposing any alterations to the building, or expansion of the footprint of the building or the rental unit. The only thing we want to do is we go out and pay like sign. We don't have graphics yet. We expect that it's going to be variance free, like conforming sign. I think it's technically probably in your design district overlay. So we may find it as far as you can see to present the window graphics for it. So if we had any strong feelings about how those graphics might look and how much and things like that. Take it into consideration. You do delegate things like that all the time to the agency. That was for Ms. Clark, that's right.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Red Bank zoning board. If you could just state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Jen Clark. My home address is 135 Iowa Landing Road in Prescott, New Jersey.
And Clark is CLARKE. Okay, so if you could just raise your right hand, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, to the best of your knowledge, to help you God? Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Clark. Would you tell the board a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, hello, everyone. My name is Jen. My background is in finance. I worked at Goldman Sachs as a business advisor for many years. Few years ago, I would say 5 years ago, I transitioned over into the franchising. My husband and I own and operate several different franchises, including Jersey Mills. Earlier this year, we purchased the Woodhouse Spa, which has been around in this community for over 10 years, I believe. I have been finding it very difficult to hire massage therapists because they come in. The cost of obtaining a license tends to be very onerous. So I thought it would be very helpful to open up a massage school in the area where I can train the students, have them gain hands-on experience at the spa, and provide them with pretty much a career path to become a licensed massage therapist in the state of New Jersey.
All right. And would you describe for the board how you're proposing to operate the massage school? What would be the curriculum, things of that nature?
So there will be study in basic anatomy, there will be study in physiology. We'll have licensed instructors that are trained to teach massage therapy. We expect the class sizes to range anywhere from 8 to 12 students, an average about 10 class size student. We will have one instructor and then we'll have like an admin person that deals with paperwork. We run classes from 9 to 2 for day students, and then another session from 6 to 10 for evening students.
Ms. Clark, I got a question.
Yeah.
What's the kind of the timeline for somebody that goes through instruction to get a license?
So in the state of New Jersey, you're required to have a minimum of 500 hours. And then of those 500 hours, you're required to have at least 100 hours of clinical, which is hands-on. So over the course, depending on how frequent the student attends class, they can get their license over the course of about 8 to 10 months.
Thank you.
You said you'd have one instructor, is that right?
Yes, one instructor per class.
I mentioned in my opening statement that I perceived a crossover between your existing business, the Woodhouse Spa, and the proposed massage school. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so as mentioned, I thought this space was a great space for the massage school because if the students go there, they're familiar with the neighborhood, many of them would be from the neighborhood. They would be training at the spot with hands-on. We would have some of the existing employees be as mentors to the existing students that want to come in. So I think it's literally, if you're at Elsie's Sub Shop and you look up, you can see the Woodhouse Spa. So I thought the synergies there made sense, and it would be less onerous for the students to try to go to school and then now find employment somewhere outside of it.
Are you going to be accepting members of the public on a for-pay basis to receive massage therapy from licensed therapists on site?
No, not on site. So again, at the Woodhouse Spa, we do provide massages, but they're only provided by licensed massage therapists. At the massage school, it'll just be clinicals and instructional classes.
And I mentioned that you're going to have an open floor plan with multiple massage tables and open rooms, so no private areas where people would get massages of any sort, right?
That's correct.
Do you anticipate that you would receive any kind of major deliveries of any sort on the site, or make any outbound shipments of any sort?
No,
You're going to produce a lot of refuse or trash at the site?
no,
And I said you weren't going to do any exterior improvements other than a window sign, is that right?
that's correct.
I don't have any further questions of this witness, but I'd certainly invite the board and their professionals to ask any of them.
I have a question. So the clinicals, who will be there? I guess, who will the students use as their, model or
Great question. So typically in the massage schools, you would have your instructional hours and then you have the 100 hours of clinical. Most massage schools do is they'll charge the public to come in a discounted rate to get massages. Our school would be different for two reasons. One, our spa is right up the block, so they can do clinicals at the spa. Second, my program is slated to be part of Governor Murphy's apprenticeship program, whereas I can learn while you earn. So they can be at the spa working while they're still learning the practicals of massage therapy.
So no member of the public will be at this location getting massages. They'll be doing clinicals at the spa. So the tables will be used just for like notebooks and writing and things like
Right,
that.
so the way it'll be set up, as you can see in the plans, those tables that you see are massage tables. Each massage table can sit 2 students. So when we do practicals, they can practice in each, I think it's about 8 to 10 tables there, and each student can practice on each other.
Right, so students will be massaging other students that are also participating in the class. And to the extent any of your trainees or apprentices or students, whatever you'd like to call them, are going to be working on members of the public, you'd anticipate that because you're in this apprenticeship program, you would be allowed to do that down the street at your existing spot.
Correct.
Anybody else have a question?
Did you say that no members of the public will be coming in that are paying
Yeah.
specifically? So if it's free massage, is that,
So let's say we were having like a clinical and we had 8 students, we were missing 1. And we had a customer at the spot that said, hey, I don't mind, or even one of our employees who, if they left the spa and went to the school, they probably considered a member of the public. So they could come in and get a massage and assess the student's touch, assess whether or not their techniques are correct during their clinic. But they wouldn't be paying for that service.
so there'd be free massages, but not paid for the services? Does that change the status of a massage parlor?
I think Shauna is going to say it might, so we'll hear some testimony on that.
Oh, you turn on your mic. So our ordinance does not, as Mr. Anderson stated, that it doesn't specify or define what a massage parlor is. However, when Ed Herman and I, we looked up the definition, in the planning term, book, it just referred to massages as, the act of touching, massaging, using hands or, machinery. So there isn't really a definition for a massage parlor per se in our ordinance or in any other planning dictionary that we've used. And my reasoning for why, I really didn't look into the parlor position of it. It's more so the act of giving a massage on the site. Usually if a spa, I would approve a spa because a spa has other services that they're offering. They're offering facials, other type of personal care. While this will strictly just be for, I understand that it's teaching massages, but the act of giving a massage will still be their primary use or their primary service that they're conducting.
So one thing that's interesting, and I can segue to our planner, once we've exhausted any of the operations testimony, and he can cover both the appeal and the use variance. I just looked up the word massage more generally in your ordinance, and I found that actually you use different terms, different massage terms, varying based upon the zone. In the law, we perceive that to be intentional, right? We attribute to the drafter an intention if they use different language, otherwise they use the same language. And what I found is that in your neighborhood business zone, in your BR1 zone and your BR2 zone, you use a broader term for what's prohibited. And you use terms like, massage establishments as opposed to massage parlors. I don't quite know what a massage establishment is, but it seems to contemplate a broader array of circumstances whereby somebody might be receiving massage. The massage parlor, though the definition I read to you does not strictly speaking say for pay, I think we would probably mostly understand in common parlance that you're going to a massage parlor, you're paying for it. It's an exchange of service. And here there is a for pay component, what you're paying for is education and how to become a massage therapist. So for that reason, that's kind of the genesis part of it.
Are there any other examples of businesses like this?
You're my,
Is there any examples that you can reference, or was it a pretty organic idea? Yeah, but that like kind of is specifically used. To benefit your, like, I think it's a good idea that you're using it as a extension of your.
Yeah, so the
of your-
concept of pretty much building a career pipeline isn't new. A lot of different industries do it, especially in like electricians and things of that sort. I'm sure like Con Edison probably, I'm from New York, so I guess here would be. Okay, they have like their own
Take care of that.
group of apprentices that they train and then put them in through their program. So it's a similar concept, it's just on a smaller scale. And like I mentioned before, Governor Murphy does have a program that supports small businesses like myself to be able to do that, to be able to hire, because it is difficult trying to hire staff that are in fact licensed. So this would allow me to train individuals who are interested in getting licensed and not only help them get that license financially, but pretty much guarantee that they have a very solid career afterwards, whether they choose to work at my spa or somewhere else, because they'll be licensed by the state of New Jersey.
I think one example that would come to my mind would be maybe like cosmetology or something like that. It's another profession that's regulated within the state of New Jersey. You can't just open up shop without having training in it for obvious reasons. I would probably argue to you that that would just be another personal service, instructional school, something like that. And pretty innocuous, small class size. People are learning a way to earn a living.
That's what I was kind of like. I was thinking of with like cutting hair, makeup, something like that. There's still, I don't have a mic.
Have your mic first.
No, that's where I was thinking, I was gonna ask that, but you had said that was with cosmetology, anything cutting hair, anything, they have to train. You have to train on someone before, you can't just do it, yeah. Okay.
Actually quite astonishing if you look on the state's website, like the DCA for licensed professions, is pretty wide range of things that the state says you actually need formal training in this before we're gonna let you do it.
Ms. Clark, on that same, where would someone go to currently if they said, hey, I want to go get licensed as a massage therapist?
So I know there's a school in Toms River, currently American Institute, I believe it's called. And then I think I live in Bergen County, so I know there's a school there. Post-pandemic, a lot of the schools closed down because people weren't coming out to get education. So I feel like that really caused a shortage in licensed massage therapists. So opening up this school will provide the opportunity for students, again, who are interested in trying to get a license. Maybe American Institute was too far out for them. Maybe all the other schools were too, I think the closest.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board?
Do you have a financial component for financial aid for the students, or are you independent of organization, or do you have your own financial aid set up for the students?
So a few things. So with the apprenticeship program, the state will pretty much pay half. They'll give the students a stipend. So whatever I pay them, the state will cover half of that. And that's for 18 months, because I think it's an 18-month program just to get the students through the program and working. Beyond that, what I intend to do is the students will pay tuition And those who graduate and get their NCLEX, they'll either go out and get their own jobs. If they want to come work for me, I will then reimburse them their tuition because they'll be working for me as a massage therapist. So it'll be like a scholarship.
It really was interesting to me because I started thinking, well, yeah, how many people could really be reasonably employed at the Woodhouse Spa in Red Bank? You can only handle so many, but I didn't realize how large that franchise is. Ms. Clark's pretty tied into it. So if she didn't have room, there's a reasonable prospect that she might be able to hook up people that need employment with people that need employees.
I think there's 3 other Woodhouses in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, any questions from the public? Ms. Clark? Okay, we'll close that public portion.
We do have Mr. O'Neill here. If you need to hear from him, he would mostly be here to tell you about the D variance aspect as the other form of relief if you weren't persuaded that this is an instructional school. So it'll be the board's pleasure if you'd like to hear from Mr. O'Neill on that.
What do you think?
So I guess we could have some board discussion. Well, I guess we should also ask for public comments too. But theoretically, you can have board discussion, and I don't know where you're going, and or should I, but I guess, Shauna, if they were inclined to say that they do think this, and they're gonna reverse your decision, and I think this is an instructional school, I would tend to think, John, we do not need to hear from the architect or the planner. If you are not sure that that's where you're going, and you're gonna think that maybe it is gonna be a use variance, then we would definitely, John would want to have the architect and planner testify. So I guess we get some, well, we ask for public comments or statements.
Just did. We just asked for.
Oh, I'm sorry, got it.
Question.
That was a question.
Shauna, has your mind changed after hearing some of this testimony, or are you still?
Well, so, I actually looked up the ordinance that, kind of amended in the section in the BR1 zone. That accepted that had the exception for massage services. And this may have been an oversight of what happened at council in 2009, but the word was massage parlor, and then they striked it out and put services. So I'm not sure if it was an oversight that everywhere in the ordinance where it says massage parlor, it was supposed to be massage services, or the ordinance itself didn't state why the change in wording.
And you know what, Sean, could I also add one other thing, and Ms. Clark can correct me. I believe from a prior application, I think at some point after 2000, the law changed and said now a massage therapist has to be licensed and certified. Is that true, or?
That's right.
Okay. So maybe that was, I don't know if that's why.
So you still think that they should go for a D1 variance? I look to you for some guidance here.
Ed has a comment.
So I'll throw my 2 cents in because I've been known to do that on occasion. Shauna and I talked about this in the early phases when she was trying to consider, as we often do, we sort of put our heads together and try to collectively come up with the best approach. I think there's enough lack of clarity in the ordinance to really pin down what this use is. I personally, I don't want to speak for Shauna, but when we first talked about it, it sounded like, the general idea is that massage parlors have a certain connotation, and it's not far off the connotation that Mr. Anderson was so kind to read from Webster Dictionary. I think that's why, there's a bad rap. So I think what you heard here this evening is that this is a school. So I think the test I would use is if they said this is a training school for dentists, or insert anything other than the word massage, would that change your opinion of the matter? I think I've been swayed by what we've heard this evening. That, you know, if it's a school, if people aren't, you know, they're not advertising for people to come in and pay for a massage at this place, it's not really acting as what I would consider a true massage parlor. It's a training school. So there's, the testimony was there will be book learning and practical application. I think I've changed my mind. And I was, you know, like I said, I was with Shauna when we looked at this at first, and she was sort of hemming and hawing, and I said, I tend to agree that without further information, I'm uncomfortable. And the general idea is if she's uncomfortable, the appropriate thing to do is to deny it and bring it to the board for consideration, which is really why we're here. And I think now I would say my mind has shifted a little bit. I certainly defer to Shauna's opinion, but the board can take that into consideration and formulate your own opinion on. Again, it's not black and white, as you would expect something perhaps could be. This is clearly a use that's a little different, right? I mean, the testimony here is there's a shortage. You could draw arguments that is there a net benefit to the pipeline of employment? You know, the state, the governor is supporting this by way of grant programs and small business support and things of that nature. So, I mean, to me, it sounds like it could be a net positive for the borough, which ultimately is what you're looking for.
I agree with you. I do agree on that. There are professions that you do have to do clinical studies. You know, you have to have the clinical work done to receive your hours, your certificate or anything. And, you know, if you're planning on filtering in down to the spa, I do see from the whole testimony that it really is a school instruction, and it does have, you know, the clinical part, but that's part of the instruction is the clinical. So I do tend to think that it doesn't need a D1. That would be my thought.
Just another question. How many therapists, massage therapists do you employ at Woodhouse, or does the average Woodhouse spa, because I know they're different sizes, employ?
So for our spa, it's a 5,400 square feet space. And we just did some, which is what we're trying to get some improvements for some renovations. And we have about 15 rooms. We operate 7 days a week. And right now we have about 15, I think, yeah, about 15 combination of full-time and part-time staff. And I'm still at 50% capacity.
Yeah, so I agree with Ed and everyone as the testimony has been given. It seems like the practice hands-on body or whatever aspect of it, or the clinical portion of it, will be filtered to the actual massage. And if anything is done at the site, it's a portion, a very small portion of the operations or the programming of the space, which technically is how I usually look at when making determination is what the programming or operations will be. And if they're saying that, you know, it's only a small portion of their overall training process, then I agree that this can be looked at as an instructional use.
Any comments? Any other comments from the board? Okay, any comments from the public? Come on up. Come on up, swear you in.
You know what, we're just gonna, to be real official, right over here, watch your step. And you know, what's your name and address?
Let's figure that over there.
Yeah, you need to pick that up and speak into the mic. You can pick it up.
Lift it up.
The whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yes.
My name is Nativida Rivera, son to the 70.
I'm sorry, Nancy, was it? Natividad.
Ferris, OLIVERA.
Thank you. And your address?
77 Shrewsbury Avenue.
Okay, and I'm just gonna swear you in real briefly. First of all, thank you for coming tonight. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge? Thank you.
I think most of us have the concept of we're a massage parlor. We heard, the bad part that goes with it. I think if the name was changed maybe to massage training school, I think we would have been more receptive. I think you would have been more receptive to hear what they had to say. I think the word power should be dropped completely.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public comments? Okay, we'll close public portion.
Mr. Chairman, just one thought for conversation as you determine which way you want to go with this. If there were to be an agreement that, an overturn of the zoning officer's decision here saying that it is a school and it would be a permitted use, would there perhaps be some type of restrictions placed on the operation to kind of ensure that the conversations that we've had, that it would be, no advertising for massages to be done on site, for pay, just to ensure that that's part of the record, that this is strictly allowed to operate as a school and there will be no other expectation for, either advertising or anything for walk-in or other appointment-based where people are going to come in and get a massage that's counter to what we've heard in the testimony.
And also, just to add to that, should the ordinance change, then that requirement, that condition, should council decide to repeal, the exception to massage services or parlor, then, that condition will no longer be relevant or something like that.
Got it. And hold on, I just had a couple other. Eileen doesn't know this, but she's gonna have to be able to read my writing tomorrow and tell me what I wrote. But I think if the inclination is to reverse Shauna's decision, we obviously, and I think Ed very eloquently said this, we'd say, hey, we understood why Shauna did this, and there definitely was a need for additional information, but some of the conditions that you would talk about would be compliance with all the promises and representations that they made tonight. And I think Ed and Shauna make a good idea that you're gonna lock them into the operational parameters of what they testified to unless the ordinance changes. And basically, you're gonna have everyone that's there has to be obviously licensed in accordance, and the no one last question, John, I think in your narrative, it said, or it suggested that you're closed on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays, or did I misread that?
Initially, the applicant was saying Monday through Thursday. Would there be any classes outside of those?
Mondays through Thursdays will be the instructional classes, and then Friday and Saturday will be the clinicals.
Got it. And then some of the other things, again, I won't come back. But whatever if you're going to say that and draw that box within within which they have to operate, obviously any change or deviation from that needs further approval. And you're not accepting the public for pay, except in very, very few occasions. And I think, I would assume, at the risk of overstepping my bounds, that the floor plans cannot change, where you had that open floor plan, no individual rooms. I'm assuming that you all would want that in to remain. And let's see. And I think, and I don't think this is the case, but I just want to make sure we're not tying in. I mean, I just want to make sure you're not saying that she has to own that other spa. I mean, that's not part of the deal. We're saying it's
She already owns it.
right,
Yeah.
but if she sold it, I want to make sure she doesn't lose her rights to this, if we're gonna authorize the school and satisfy all licensing requirements and hours of operation. We just generally say that you have to comply with municipal regulations if the town has any. And Herman's point about no advertising for the massage services on site, and Again, only the small portion of that actual massage from someone who's not affiliated with the school. And Shauna, if you're okay with it, to Miss Alvadera's point, we can put on our topic of annual report, whether the massage parlor reference to should be modified in the in our ordinances, just because we have to have things for our annual report anyway. And I think those were the gist in terms of anything. So if this is what you're suggesting, you would basically, I think, have a motion to say respectfully reverse the subject decision that Shauna made, and based upon the limiting and specific testimony and evidence presented and the operational parameters presented, you are willing to find that Ms. Clark's specific school is in fact an instructional, what is it, an instructional school and a permitted use.
I'm okay with that.
Is there a plan to have a sign out front?
So Elsie's place currently have windows, so we're just going to put placards in the windows, just the signage on the windows right now. So I think there's a salon across the street that has some, it's just.
Lettering or like an applique on the window.
And I think you indicated
And it's talking about how much coverage you can have.
it would be a zoning compliant sign absent further approval from the zoning board.
But that will be a separate application.
Yes.
Signage. It's not included in this
We don't
application.
have a graphic yet to
Right.
show you, so it's separate.
Okay.
You probably do have to send.
Yeah, so you'll have to do a new development permit for the sign only, yes.
Okay, after listening to Mr. Kennedy summarizing, anybody want to make a motion to approve or deny this application?
I'll approve it.
I'll second.
And so so technically, if I may, it is to reverse Shauna's decision for the reasons presented, and we're going to find that this is an instructional school.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Ken Turing,
Yes.
Raymond Mass,
Yes.
Eileen Hogan,
Yes.
Ken Euro,
Yes.
Sharon Lee,
Yes.
Paul Cagnon,
Yes.
Amanda Doremus,
Yes.
and Chris Hagan.
Yes.
Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, email, right, Shauna?
Or you can just take
A picture of it.
board.
Yeah, just take a picture of it
I'll
and
email
send
to you
it. Yeah.
tomorrow morning. There's a.
Okay. Okay, next up we have
It could be.
78 Bridge Avenue.
Thank you.
Mr. McCann.
Hey, he was here. He's right there.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, as the applicant's team comes forward, a couple real quick things we'll do procedurally. Number one, I'll mark into the record what we as a board have before us, and you'll recall we accepted jurisdiction at the last meeting. And also recall that the application had been carried a number of times, and Mr. McKenna and his clients were good enough to renotice, because I think the board was concerned that we not okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark into the record what we as a board have before us. And let's see, A1 is going to be the application package. A2 is going to be the preliminary and final major site plan prepared by Ingenuity, and that's dated February 10th, 2023, revised through August 28th, 2023, consisting of 10 sheets. A3 is the architectural plans prepared by Michael Monroe, and that's dated January 4th, 2023, revised through August 28th, 2023, consisting of 8 sheets. A4 is the stormwater management report and Ingenuity Infrastructure dated February 10th, 2023. A5 is a traffic impact report prepared by Klein Traffic Consulting LLC dated February 15th, 2023. A6 is the Affordable Housing Plan Memo prepared by Christine Cafone, and that's dated February 21st, 2023. A7 is the Intent to Proceed letter dated December 15th, 2022. A8 is the Disclosure of Ownership and Escrow Agreement dated December 15th, 2022. A9 is the Development Permit Application and Zoning Permit Denial Letter dated October 21st, 2022. A10 is the Red Bank Green Development Checklist undated. A11 is the Preliminary Geotechnical Investigation and Stormwater Management Area Evaluation prepared by Whitestone Associates dated August 29th, 2023. A12 is the Engineer's Response Letter prepared by Jacqueline Floor of Ingenuity. It was, I think, undated. A13 is the water and sewer demand calculations prepared by Ingenuity. I think that's undated. And we're going to mark as A14 the T&M Associates Review Memorandum dated September 18th, 2023, last revised September 19th, 2023. I just had a couple of other things here that we just might need to. I guess I have a environmental commission comments and recommendations. And it's undated, so we're gonna mark that as A15. And Mr. McKenna, did you happen to receive that?
No.
Okay, so we'll get a copy of this to you. And A16 is the review memorandum from the Shade Tree Commission dated April 27th, 2023. We'll get that to you too, Mr. McKenna. And what we're also going to do is we are going to swear in Shauna Ebanks, our Director of Community Development, and Ed Herman, our Board Engineer. Shauna and Ed, do you swear, if you could raise your right hands, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth, the best of your knowledge to help you God?
I do.
Okay, let the record reflect our professionals have been sworn. And against that backdrop, we will turn it over to Mr. McKenna.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Evan McKenna. Here's the attorney for the applicant. Just a few remarks before we get into the actual testimony. Number one, I'd like to thank the board for your consideration and cooperation. I know it's been a long time to get here. Through various issues that we had essentially no control over, problems, and two illnesses, and now again this evening, witness problems. We are prepared to move forward and give Mr. Monroe's testimony, and then put in the rest of our case subsequent to that. Probably the next available meeting. Once again, I want to thank you for cooperation. As Mr. Kennedy has pointed out, we have gone out of our way to notice in each instance. No one probably did not know what's been going on as far as the latest connection with the testimony. That's number one. Number two, so the board will be hearing only from the criminal this evening. There will be plenty of opportunity to speak to planners and engineers and traffic engineers. All of them will be called on subsequent date. So if you have questions, feel free to try to ask Mr. Monroe a question that he can put within his area of expertise. Please understand though that some of the questions that might come to your mind might involve a question that would be more apt to be answered by a professional planner or by the engineer or the traffic engineer. We welcome any question, but don't want the board to be satisfied if I suggest to you that perhaps they would be more informed and would be an area that another one of the professionals would be better equipped to answer. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Monroe to be sworn in.
All right, good evening and welcome to the Red Bank Zoning Board. If you could just state your name and business address.
Monroe. 78 Shrewsbury Avenue, 10 Falls.
All right, do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the best of your knowledge, to help you God?
I do.
And just for the record, you're testifying tonight in your capacity as a licensed,
Architect.
thank you. Good question.
I think the board is well familiar with, Monroe, like,
Yeah, we have a lot of new members, so.
okay.
Actually,
Michael, perhaps you could, or just a brief, review of your, I was, Carnegie Mellon graduate. I've been licensed in New Jersey for about 34 years. I spent Jersey Shore, past president and the chairman of the Construction Board of Appeals. I testified as expert witness, probably in 40 or 50 municipalities, and probably hundreds of times, in total over 34, as an expert.
thank you.
Can I just ask a question? How many times have you testified in front of this board, in front of the Red Bank board?
20.
20 times?
Easily.
Easy.
Only since I've been here. Come on.
So Mr. Monroe, obviously you've been retained by the owner of this property, the applicant. And you've been retained by the architectural services. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to take the board through the design of the project. Pretty thoroughly, and I think you have a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So if you wouldn't mind using your mic on a journey with PowerPoint. Right, so this is on the Bridge Avenue elevation. Basically what we have is a 4-story building proposed. It's 49 feet. It's in the transit overlay zone. There is 32 units and 47 parking spaces. It's what we call a pedestal type building, where the parking is all mostly contained under the building. There is, as you come in off of the Oakland Street entrance, which is the side street, and then left-hand side, what you see before you is a rendering of the front of the building or bridge. There's 7 spaces outside, which would be anticipated for non-residential use, and then there's 40 spaces inside. There's a coffee shop and a retail on the ground floor. We thought it was important that it's included in the uses for the zone to have non-residential uses on the ground floor to create an active environment for people. So a lot of people are going to see the building. It's patty corner from the rail, which is a new multi-family that was just built. And then it's mostly a 2-story block, and then you have Sickles, the old Henderson building on the far corner across the street. So we have parking and retail, a small coffee shop on the first floor, and then 3 stories above. It's a courtyard style building, so we have a cutout in the middle of the building, like a donut. That's right down the middle of the building. And there's 7 units on the first and second floor, and 6 on the second, third, and fourth.
I'm sorry, say it again. It was,
The first floor is parking, second floor and the third floor both have 7 units, and there's 1 less unit on the fourth floor. There's 3 units, 4 units by each floor that are in the inside of the donut, and the balance of the units are on the outside. We like that type of building because it gives us a lot of windows, space, a lot of perimeter for the type of units. Another feature of the building is we wanted to respect the 2-story scale of the street. So there's a 2-story colonnade. I saw something similar on a trip to Barcelona in the old city, and I like that type of idea. It's a brick colonnaded area, 10 or 12 feet deep, and as long as the whole front of the building. That's a public space. You could sit, wait for a train, you get a cup of coffee. It's a public space. And when we originally designed the building, that's part of our open area calculation. There was some confusion, we'll go into the particulars later, but we're counting that as an open unoccupied space and for public use. So up on, it's a 2-story colonnade space, and then it steps back 10 or 12 feet, and that creates another green space at the third floor level. Then we have, a green roof up top. Up top, we have a bunch of different activities. Green areas. We put a pickleball court in at the front of the corner. With solar panels, generators, things like that, mechanical equipment, all is on the roof. Basically, we're trying to create a building that respected some of the architecture in Red Bank and also use some nice features that reflected the character of the street and also had some of the step backs with respect to two-story scale of the buildings on that side of the street. Our goal was to create 2-bedroom units, 32 units. In the transit overlay, we're allowed to go to 35 units per acre, which would give us 20.7 or so. So 20 units by right. I designed this building 3 different times with all different size units. What we have before you is a version with more units, smaller and with more color units. So if we did 20 units and made a conforming density, we would have 2 of those would be color units. Anything over 10 units, we have to provide the color units in the building. The ordinance has a step up from 26 to I think 150. It goes to 15% color in the building. So we have other 32 units that are currently proposed before you. 5 of those are color units. The balance are market. These are all rental units. They're not for sale units. In this opportunity zone, it's required to be rentals, not for sale. All components, there was some discussion in a letter. We'll go through some of the points in the review letter about 3-bedroom color units. Our team, we were told that we had to provide a spread of the 5 units. We had to have a certain amount of 1-bedroom, a certain amount of 2-bedroom, a certain amount of 3 bedrooms. We certainly don't want to do the 3-bedroom units. We're okay taking them out. We were told that if you provide 5, it's selected for you that you have to provide a range of sizes for those range of number of bedrooms for those color units. So on one hand, we're forced to do it. On the other hand, we're forced to do that percentage. I don't know what the split would be on a 20 unit, might be a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom. So the driving factor was to do conforming 2-bedroom units with 1,000 square foot minimum. And some of those units that were less than 1,000 square feet were the color units. We've done a lot of multifamily. We've done a lot of co-buildings in the past 5 or 6 years. And we've used lower standards for 2-bedroom units of 800 square feet. We have no problem coming back before you and making sure that every unit on our next revised plan will be at least meet the minimum requirement of no less than 1,000 square feet, no more than 2 bedrooms, assuming we get past the color issue of about the 3 bedrooms. So that's where that issue came up in the review letter. We have a large green roof. We're required to have 25% of your roof as a green roof once you're over 5,000 square feet. We're going to be well in excess of that. Plus, our whole courtyard has a green floor to it. There's trees and plants and grass, and also some of the walls will be living walls. We're actually going to plant plants on the walls. So there's going to be a pretty heavy green component to the building. And like I said, we do have a space for solar panels. And also in the discussion of stormwater, there was a lot of discussion back and forth of stormwater. I think we're going to be closer to 50% of total green roof area. If you add the area in the front of the building, that's on the step back, halfway up on the front elevation, there's a green roof there. There's a green roof on the donut on the inside of the courtyard. And there's probably going to be 50% of the upper roof, 40 to 50% will be a green roof. So we will be providing you a detailed planting schedule. It's one of the requests that hasn't been provided yet of what those, and we're happy to work with the town on what types of plants we put in there. But we've done a lot of green roofs, and a lot of that area will be a pedestal paver system where you walk down the roof and you walk on a nice paver material, a 2x2 paver. They also make landscape trays that are exact same size as a 2x2, and you can put grass in it, you can put ground cover like sage, and all kinds of cool plants in it that are drought resistant, that have different color that, and you change them over time. So, it's kind of nice. You can make that a fluid environment, you know. And there'll be separate, larger plantings and larger trees. That's basically an overview of the building. Of what we're thinking of, and in terms of the density, our goal originally when we started this project 2 or 3 years ago was to come before you with a completely conforming by rights application. And we certainly can do that as we got further into it. At 20 units for this size building, which will have meet all the requirements for parking and building coverage, lot coverage, open area. At 20 units, or 2 of which are co-op, we're probably gonna have closer to 1,800 square foot apartment, so just be a higher rental rate. The thought was if we do more units, a little more affordable type of size units, we're gonna be closer to 1,000, 1,200 square feet. Some of these are already 1,400 square feet. And certain units that are much nicer, like obviously on the south side of that are on the towards the street that have a private garden in front of them. So we're looking for some sort of direction from the board before we put a parade of people in front of you, engineers, planners, and traffic. We're confident that we can meet the traffic, the parking and screening for this application, this number of units. And if that's not the feeling of the board, we'll come back with an alternate less units and larger size units.
Question, I like that view. Can you show the other view on the other street of the building?
Sure. I have a hard copy of it.
Is it in the package that
It's in
you?
the package, yeah.
Okay, I can pull that up.
Oh, you don't have it on that?
I do have it on paper, and I think it's in the package, so I think she has it. One of the comments was about the length of the building. I noticed a 175 foot limit. We're over that. We staggered it. And
Is this the view or?
Yeah,
is it
that
the other one? What street is
I
that?
think that's the,
Or is it the other one? This one?
so that's.
The one
Oakland.
bridge, so that's Oakland.
That's also the 63 views right there.
So is it which one's Oakland Street?
Left of the.
This one right here, the bottom elevation that's enlarged. You drive through the left-hand side of it, entry to parking here, there's 7 spaces outside. You drive into the building for the balance of the spaces. The edge of to the right-hand side is the edge of that setback, and you can see setback of the building. You can also see the landscaping up there, and then there's also porches projecting into it.
This entrance, if he says.
The 2 porches?
Took it, we make the turn.
Open. So there's a decent building,
Or it's in this.
2-story building, this portion.
You could just grab the mic with you, Mike. Sorry.
So there's on the right-hand side of the building where the 2-story base is. Those are the least desirable units. You're up against another building. We're still the conforming distance away, but that's where we put some of the one of the co-units. And then the 3rd and 4th floor above that. So we did a baseline and we changed the color of the building. And we've had different size porches, different size decks. Some covered, some uncovered throughout the different versions of the project. So.
And that doesn't have any then, right? That's that version there. That's side, it's just windows inside it.
Yeah.
Ridge Avenue is pretty nice, but that's pretty ugly.
You said it.
The bottom portion of that is covered up, but I'm happy to we'll come back with an alternate elevation for that facade. We'll put more detail into it. The roof parapet is going to be also undulating where we had cutouts, the parapet's gonna be about 4 feet tall, with 5 feet total with 1 foot for pedestals, it's required to be 3.5 feet. So this part of the building, you're driving fairly close to the building, the right 2/3 is blocked on the first 2 floors. And then, like I said, you drive through all the parking is through that one entrance. So we'll come back with, I'll modify the elevations, with additional porches and architectural details on that side.
Or perhaps it might just help to see a rendering of that
Yeah,
side.
Yeah, I
Maybe the selections are correct and maybe they match appropriately on the Bridge Avenue side. It's just so beautiful on the front page. We don't get that effect on the
We'll bring
second.
the same architecture on the side, I'd rather do that anyway, so we wanna make it look, we wanna be proud of the building from all elevations. And we'll bring those details on the front on this side elevation, so the intent is to spend money on all sides of the building, they're gonna be visible. We have parking lots on most of the ground floor, but people will see the building from the other sides, so. We'll come back to you with, all 4 elevations rendered the same way, so you can see. The cutouts, the porches, the landscaping on the roof. We'll put the same effort at all, but the flavor will be as per the front elevation, so. Our intent is to put the same level of design and detail in all 4 elevations.
If you're looking at the front of the building, is it longer down the Oakland? It's longer down Oakland than it is on Bridge.
Yeah, it's
right?
175 versus about 100, so. And then there was, one of the comments was, we're required to be 5 feet back off of Bridge, which is the train station side. That streetscape is pretty well established where the buildings are right on the property line, so I brought it 1 foot off. But that lines up with the existing buildings. Also, if it's felt that it's more appropriate to bring the whole building back, I could do that also. I could pull the front of the building in, but I think being 1 foot off is gonna make it line up with the existing streetscape. I think that's most appropriate from an architectural point of view. We usually try to do that, respect that, and keep the same scale of it on that, so.
And those storefronts were newly renovated, the one that's only 1 foot off the sidewalk there, so it would be in line with all of them there. Instead of it being set back even further and differentiating it from that nice storefront line.
Yeah, because we have a pretty deep side, I mean, there's a nice sidewalk on that street already. And then we'll take the width of that sidewalk, which I think is about 10 feet, plus our 10 or 12 feet for the covered porch. That's a nice amount of public space there. That's all together. That I'd like to put some landscaping on that level also. We took some artistic licensing and added some shrubs on the lower level, which weren't on the landscaping plan, but I'll make sure those are coordinated with the engineer. And we get to put the plantings in on the engineering plan.
How many buildings are being demolished?
There's two houses on the side street on Brooklyn, and there's 3 lots, and on those 3 lots is 2 larger buildings and 1 smaller one. One's mostly a parking lot. On the first engineering review letter, on page 3, Mr. Herman has a nice diagram. It shows an aerial view on the block out of the 4 lots, so if you have that in front of you, but it's basically 5 buildings. What it doesn't include is the corner. The corner is kind of
Exactly.
a little bit of a fork on it, almost like a Northern style metal column type of thing, being generous, and we don't control the corner of those 2 buildings. The intent was to assemble as many pieces as possible, and they ended up assembling the 5 pieces over the course of a year or 2.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
No, you're right.
There were a dozen design waiver variances that you're looking for, right?
Yes, some are technical and some we can probably make go away.
All right, so you talked about the first, the setback of 1 foot, that was on Bridge Avenue?
That's one of the waivers, yes, Bridge Avenue, which is the streetscape.
And that's because it's lined up, you want to do it the way that is because it's lined up with the other commercial spots?
Correct.
So then let's talk about the other 3 setbacks on the other sides of the building. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah.
Can you go over them?
The parking setbacks are different from the building setbacks.
Setback to lot 14, 8 foot is proposed and it's 20 on the ordinance. Am I reading that right?
Let's go to that section of the review letter. One of the comments was,
It's section 2.2.1, 2.2.2, 2.2.3, 2.2.4. You're proposing various setbacks that seem to be at least 50% less than what's required. Is that fair?
the open setback, the comments for the engineer is 27.3 design waivers required for bridge, but not for open side street. So, 25 required in 27.3.
For Oakland?
Yes.
Oh, so lot 14 is, where's that at on your drawing?
The, lot 14.
Well, if you can just take a look at those sections that I referred to.
Yeah, I have the sections in front of me.
Yeah, so I'm confused as you need 4 waivers there, and I want to know what the reasons are.
For the front setbacks, I think we just need a waiver for the open, just the Bridge Avenue one, the 1 foot we were just discussing for the streetscape. The ordinance reads 25 feet from the right of way from all public streets. Proposing 1 foot off of Bridge and 10 feet off of Oakland. But it's not really 10 feet, it's 27.3, so I believe there's no waiver required for.
Well, I don't know if this letter is wrong, that I'm not quite getting it.
So
It's gonna.
Turn off your mic. Only one mic could be on it. Sorry.
So I'll try to provide a little clarity. So this 490-96 multifamily requirements. I would suggest maybe, Mr. Kennedy, that we include this in our annual review. This section is really intended, in my opinion, to cover multiplex sites where you have, condo buildings. And so it's really attempting to categorize a site that has multiple condo type buildings. Typically, the setback standards for the ordinance zone would be, from the streets and from all those other. So this is really kind of intending to be building to building on the same site. I've always struggled with this personally. I've been here for 10 plus years and we run into this oftentimes, and that's why they're considered waivers instead of variances under that section. I don't know if that lends any credibility to what your question actually is. So it's really, you're trying to apply standards that weren't really meant. So I've always kind of struggled with that commentary. So those are really just referencing that specific multifamily. Multifamily is defined as, multiple units, so it technically meets that. So we're into that whole gray zone of, is this section really intended for this development? I tend to think really not. But I put it in for reference, so the board has awareness of what it says and what in an attempt to be conservative, I list it. And I know where the deficiencies are in a strict interpretation of that from that section. If that makes any sense.
I think
Sorry.
I think you say you have it in the letter, but it doesn't necessarily apply to this construction.
Yeah, it's that gray area. So let's put it this way. As a board, I would recommend that you put less credence in that section and more credence in the variance review section, which would talk about distances of the building to the actual public streets, to the adjacent neighbors, side yard setback to a neighbor, for instance, rather than trying to categorize that into it's building to building on the same site is less impactful than, what's the side setback from your building to a neighbor that's not involved with the application. Is the best way I can explain that.
Okay.
And Paul, could I just ask, Amanda had asked, you're looking at section 2.2 of the T&M review letter?
Yes.
Got it. All right, that's where I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Yeah, where some of the confusion comes in, so as a design team, we decided 8 feet would generally be the building setback on on the side and rear of the building. There's an additional setback where the front entrance is. I mean, the garage entrance, because on Oakland Street, there's two buildings that are right on the street. There's no real setback. So our building setback more than what's actually required. The other confusion, 2.1, 2, 3, and 4. We meet the building setback, but as was just discussed, not the other part of this ordinance. And then the parking is substantially under the building. But what we did, especially if we're parking lot, next to parking lot, there wasn't a need to really create a buffer parking lot to parking lot. So we have a fence. Some of the parking goes out from underneath the building a little bit towards the side and the rear. That enabled us to get more parking and do better traffic flow under the building. So the building, the part that you see and that you sense is set back generally 8 feet around on the side and the rear where it abuts buildings. And the parking goes closer in certain areas where it doesn't really matter, where you can't see it, because the parking is hidden by a 6-foot fence and the car is about 6 feet or less. So generally, and you're going parking lot to parking lot. So that's where the other parts of this thing. And Jackie Floor, our ingenuity, she actually went ahead, you laid this out. You did a nice way of indicating what portion was to what, whether it was to a parking area or to another building. The only place we're close to a building is really on the corner of Bridge and Oakland. So there's two existing 2-story buildings on the corner. And there we're 8 feet away from the building, but we're 27 feet away from the street.
Nick, you discussed the variance or the design waiver that you need for the height of the building. I believe the parapets are taller than 50 feet.
Any variances, or even design waivers. So the way I read this section on height, we're allowed to go 50 feet or 49. We're allowed 15 feet for accessory structures, and some of them are 10 feet. We're going to meet all those requirements. So we don't anticipate there will be no waivers for heights or of roof structures or heights of the building.
It's just my personal concerns that I'm seeing. I do feel like the building's a bit too dense. I believe the variance for the density is over 60% of an increase of what's currently allowed there. That's just my personal feeling on it currently. I will certainly wait to hear the rest of the testimony though from the planner and everybody else. It's my current concern if you're going back to the drawing board. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about it. We had to have a discussion about it with the architect if you're going to go back and look at it. I do think it's it's towering in my opinion. I don't think it matches the area. I do think something belongs there in that area though. I'm not against building and developing that area. I just think it's too big, it's too dense. Half acre calls for, I think, what, a full acre calls for 34 units and you have a half acre, you put 32.
20.79, so combined with the 20.
Yeah, so I think it's too big. That's just my current feeling on it. Of course, like I said, I will wait to hear all and listen to all of the evidence. I just wanted to let you know that.
I appreciate that. And I wanted to start off with architectural testimony so that we're not wasting a lot of time going through 3 meetings of engineering between why something can work if it's not the feeling of the board. So I want to bring what everyone thinks is in their best interest. And I don't mind making it complying. I don't mind doing somewhere between that. If it's balancing the extra color units, it's balancing the size of the housing stock in the area. They all have different levels of advantage. So if someone really thought that the extra color units were worth it and to have smaller units, I'm all for that. Our business model works for either size units, but like I said, I did design this entire building as a 20-unit building. And at that time, I didn't have a courtyard, which I actually liked a lot better, a lot more green space than the original design. So it's been going in a good direction, and I'm happy with that. And I want to keep going on that, but I don't want to get to the end of it and then start the whole project over again. I'd rather get the opinion of what the board thinks is the appropriate density. Do we follow that to the letter of the law, live with it? And I'll be okay with that if the board thinks that's the best. So that would help us as a design team to get that some sort of informal input now, and then seriously, still saw a lot of time.
Yeah, my other question was the open space. You were speaking but not pointing where the public open space was, but I believe it was 10%. And it was supposed to be, you're looking for a variance at that issue as well. Is that right?
That's actually, that's just a miscommunication between the engineer. Office. So I think the initial comment was talking about the covered walkway. I think, it was thinking that the courtyard space was open space, but that's not accessible to the public. The courtyard is strictly private, no one can get to it. But open space in front, two-story, technically, I think that falls under the definition for how that would count towards open space. The board thinks that, I mean, I'm gonna keep that feature anyway, it's a really nice feature, I like architecturally. I think that meets the definition of open space. So without that, we had the 10.9, but when you include that space in as open public space, which it is, we're at 15.56, so we have more than we need. To get to our 15%, and that's, that's the minimum. I can increase that number, but I think that was a miscommunication, on review letter 1.
So a miscommunication on para 1.6, Ed, is that right?
That's what the implication is. What I'll suggest is that we'll reevaluate that in advance of the next meeting, so we are more prepared. I think there is some nuance to the definition. We'll confirm. Yeah, and come to an agreement on what we believe is collectively the right.
And I appreciate that. I don't want to do something that is a misread of the ordinance. So the feeling is, that's great, it's a nice feature, but it doesn't count towards the 15%. We'd like to go closer to now, or we can have a discussion over the next couple of weeks with the Chairman's office, or from feedback that we're getting from the board, that even though it might be a nice feature, and even though it may fit the definition, the rain doesn't fall there. It's not, but it is open space, it's open to the public, and in my reading of it met the definition. Otherwise, the building just gets made smaller and we still keep that feature. So I personally don't have a problem with it, especially if I'm reducing the number of units, I can make the building smaller.
But calling back to your previous testimony, increasing it from 20 to 30 allowed them to be more affordable.
Right. Yeah, in other words, maybe I can put this in simpler terms. If Mr. Monroe designs a building and the owner, okay, we have 20 units. They're very large units, oversized units. The rentals are gonna be much higher. Don't get them in Red Neck right now, because you get anything you want in Red Neck right now, a rental. The other question is COA. We've been, Mr. Monroe and I and many others that here in Red Neck live in the area. COA is important to us. And we've been very insistent, you as a board, I applaud you. Because what you do normally is try to make them COA units on site. And I think virtually every project that we've had here that I've been involved with had them on site. So we actually incorporate them into the building. So the question is, you want more affordable housing and more COA units, or do you want a luxury building with fewer units, higher rentals, and fewer COA units?
Because the 32 units would allow more units to be COA units, and then also more affordable units to tenants that don't qualify for that.
Right.
Okay.
And I think part of the density thing is not just to make them more affordable, but I think in my reading of the transit overlay, it's a really good spot. It's right next to the train station. It's a textbook, good example. And then they give you parking breaks for that, because they assume at least one or two people will be taking the train in to work. And I mean, there's all kinds of reasons you're close to a lot of mass transit. So the density is it's a good location to have more units, because it gets people closer to transportation, less driving, less pollution, less people running around, less clutter. And that's all good. I don't know if any units are. said, there's not much, affordability is a relative term. Nothing new is really generally affordable.
Yeah, but I was gonna address that as well. I don't quite understand what we're talking about. It's affordable if you put more units. I imagine you're gonna price it as a per square foot. So whether it's 1,800 square foot, it'll be priced the same as whether it's a 900 square foot, depending on the square footage, right?
So I mean, let's say that the business model works both ways. So I mean, and also on the 20-unit version, I had larger decks, larger outdoor spaces, which is nice. It's nice beach, people want to be outdoors, especially in the post-COVID era. So if you have a 7x10 patio or 10x20 patio, that's a really nice feature to have. And I think we would definitely rent those units. So if the feeling of the board is with the last unit and go more conforming, I'm happy to do that. Just I had to make this application for my client because that was his wishes. But like I said, I have designed it 3 different times already. And the goal is to build something on that.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, if you're looking for my input, it sounds like you are. I would be leaning towards more conforming and less units. That's, and less density. But so I suggest that's what you're asking me
I
that.
appreciate that.
Yeah. So the rest of the board, if they want to let him know, I think it'll be more efficient for you to go back if you understand what everyone's initially thinking as well.
I have there we go. I have a question on that. When you started your testimony and you talked about the possibility of reducing the density, it sounded to me as if the building would basically stay the same size, the units would be larger. Is that accurate, or is it a little bit of both?
No, I mean, the building could be the same size or it could be slightly reduced. One of the appeals of the courtyard building, if I go for less units, I can start to step back the roof a little bit on the upper level. A little more expensive to build, but it gets more light in the courtyard. So I can start doing some nice features like that. That makes a big difference for how the building feels and operates, and people will be much happier there. So there's things that I'd like to do as an architect that would make the building more interesting and better livable. But I think on that footprint, I can taper in the inside, or I can just make the whole building a little bit smaller, which is fine. I'm working with that. When I first designed this, like you do every property, I designed the parking before I designed the building. Every project starts that way. You figure out how you're going to park it in terms of at least what the parameters are in terms of flow and access, and then you decide what's the best way to go from there. But I mean, in terms of once you know what you want to build. I think these projects, these become complicated engineering problems with the parking and traffic movement, and pedestrian movement, things like that. So. Yeah, and if I might just in response, the building doesn't need a height variance, doesn't need a parking variance as it is. So it's rare that we have an opportunity to come before the board and suggest to you, you know what, there's a couple of different ways of doing it. But a lot of it is philosophical. And I'm not being facetious, you know what I mean? The question is, what's in the best interest of Red Bank? For example, diagonally across the street, you got the rail. You know what I mean? This is a very dense area as a result of the development. I'm not advocating for one way or the other. All that I'm suggesting is that at least you have an applicant.
Advocate your microphone.
I'm sorry, I think at least you have an applicant that wants to listen and put it to the board. But we also have to recognize the area that we're looking at. That area, the neighborhood, so to speak, I'll call it, for lack of a better term. Between 120, 121, what's going up there, you've got the rail, you've got the one right across the street, one of those. Station Place. Yeah, Station Place. So I mean, you have a lot of density there. And it's the obvious place. You're gonna hear it from a planner, whether it's our planner or anybody else, they're gonna come in and tell you, this is where this type of housing should be. This is the type of density issue. I'm not advocating for the other, I'm just saying.
No, I'm not either. I think
Your question,
my question was really trying to get at, we might have a less dense building in terms of number of units, but the building would not be markedly smaller from the outside. That seems to be what you're saying.
my redesign those units, I can make the building smaller, so that's possible, yes. So, I can come back to you. I can come back to you with that alternate.
Just for clarity, by smaller, do you mean same height? Smaller footprint? Let's just be clear, because I want to make sure everyone's talking the same language here. If we're saying smaller, does that mean dimensionally smaller vertically as well as footprint? Or is it going to be the same footprint, the same height, and just double the floor area per unit?
Well, okay.
No,
It looks like it's very large going down Oakland Street. I think that's the concern of the board right now, that we see I can't get my.
There it goes.
Okay, there it goes. Magic. It's very large going down Oakland Street. What did you say, 100 feet?
195.
180, so like double size going down Oakland Street. And that's where you're tearing down the single family homes, 2-family homes.
Correct.
And I think that's the issue of density for us. That's what we see.
Yeah, no, I'll respect that view of it, and I'll make the building less massive from there. I think the height is right. I think that the 4 stories is in the, but I can adjust the mass and I can adjust the step backs. Like I think on Bridge, the step back is nice there. I think it does a lot of positive things. I still get the height, but your perception of it's a lot different. When you're on the street, that building is going to seem smaller. When you go by a train, which, tens of thousands of people will, I want it to be nice architecturally, but as from the streetscape point of view, and even going down Oakland, I can carve out pieces of that building and I can make it feel more broken up architecturally. So I think it's a good comment.
You saw an original building, would you say Portugal? You saw this original facade?
Barcelona.
Barcelona, yeah, Spain. That was close.
I was in the city of Barcelona, right next to a park, and it was used the same way. It was a 2-story columns and brick, and it was nice.
Was it an old building?
Yes.
Okay, and what did the side look like by chance? Could you see the side, or was it hemmed in? I'm just curious.
It was a much larger building. It was actually had the same architecture on 2 corners.
All the way around.
There was hundreds of feet long. But in that case, you're right across from a very large park. So I don't have that advantage. I'd love to be across from a park. I don't have that. I'm putting the park on the building and in the building, so you get that feeling, and I want to add landscaping to that lower levels for the streetscape. I know the board cares about this, the plantings at the street level. So I'm going to put a special emphasis.
Well, you're moving into a neighborhood that's existing, and you have residences to the south that are going to be looking at a wall of building and windows, okay? And they've had residential neighborhood, and I understand it's changing, I understand the density, but let's see what we can do to minimize that.
No, I think it's a good comment. We'll certainly address that.
I think as a board, I know I always struggle when big applications come with the traffic, the parking and the density. I'll always say something, but I don't remember having somebody saying like they're willing to work and change. It seems like we get these projects in front and it's like, this is how many units we're doing. And it's like every piece of the parcel has to be developed and max out the most that you can do. It's kind of nice to hear you say that you're willing to work, and give us the choice of less dense, because that's not what usually happens, if this is the project, that's it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I mean, if you don't mind me adding, that's a great comment. The problem is in some instances, nothing will ever be built here.
Yeah.
For example, 121, that mess that's over there, big vans and all that stuff. If we didn't approve that project, that'll be sitting there for 10 years. And on 120, that corner has been garbage for 30 years. So it's a balance. It really is. It's a very tough decision. I respect the board. I respect your intelligence and your approach, and like that. And it's very refreshing for us to have a client that says, let's go to the board, what they have to say.
Can I,
Let's get your in.
I make a couple of comments,
Yeah,
I do respectfully disagree with my colleague, there is an affordability difference with number of units, if you have $25,000 apartments versus 32 $3,000 apartments. There is a difference, there's a difference in the results of who moves there. So there is a difference, it's not just about square foot. So the units obviously are smaller, so they cost less. The other comment I would make is sort of the opposite side of that. It seems to me, for many years of watching struggles like this, with sites that need to be built bigger than the current zoning allows to make it affordable to develop it. You just can't build a 1-story or 2-story building here. It doesn't make sense. One way to look at this, to make it more defensible to variance it, is what's the minimum you can do and still develop it? Can you do 18 units, 24 units, 27, 20? What's the minimum you can do and pull it off and change that corner? Because I agree, there are many sites right in my neighborhood where I live off River Shrewsbury where, you know, it's very difficult to build them. But then I don't want a big building either, like these people don't. So it's a tough one.
and that's a really good point. That's what we're saying, right? You could have, it could go down to 20, go down to 20 units.
Microphone.
I'm sorry. If you're paying square foot, then yeah, you're gonna pay $3,700 a month to $1,800. Right?
Yep.
$4,500, whatever the number is, it's just locked, that's what happens. Go to Westside Loss, see what they do. It's crazy.
All right, so comments, any further comments from the board for Mr. Monroe?
Okay. What was the, you said you had 3 iterations of this project, so I assume it's the current, the 20 unit, and then what was the?
Yeah, the first one didn't have courtyard at all, it just had, it had a long internal hallway, which I didn't like, it had some skylights coming out from the roof. But it seemed like it needed more light in the middle of the building, because it's, you know, the size of it, and I think so, and some of them just became too big. So I think the sweet spot for these units probably is 13, 14 to 1,600. Some of these are, there's some are really nice units here that have really nice places and nice views and stuff, and there's a lot of nice amenities to it too. So you're building an expensive parking structure and an expensive roof. So you gotta cover that one way or the other, but I think ultimately, and then we had a version where we had less units for the courtyard, but the courtyard gave us the advantage to get more density, and it's good done, it's a feature for large multi-family buildings, so it gives you more windows, so what drives number of units is how much windows, you need bedroom windows, living area windows, so I double the number of windows in my building, and also it's nice. With less units, I can adjust the space of that courtyard too. I can make it a little bit wider, I can make it nicer, let more light come down in it, so. Those are 3 versions, you have 2 versions of courtyard, and the original version was just a center hallway going kind of meander down. But this is more geometric, and I think ultimately even much more successful. I could do a very structured core, make a really nice elements. I can do building setbacks like the front on the side and the other sides, help keep that 2-story scale. And it's more expensive. The cheapest thing is just to stack up blocks, go straight up. Every time I offset it, I'm spending more money, but I'm making a big difference 3-dimensionally in terms of how the building feels. So I think it's worth the investment to how the building staggered.
I would echo Chris's comment on the density. I understand other people's worry. I think it's the right spot for it. I would echo the comments on the Oakland Street side of jazzing it up. You know, put all the four sides of the building under the same scrutiny that you would the Bridge Ave side. I'm not sure if it's your spot to answer, but the actual affordable units, will they have the same amenity access, the same level of finishes, the same?
Generally, we're required to do them fairly similar, yes. People, sometimes you see deviations like in condo projects. The affordables are never quite as good, I mean, they're cheaper, sometimes cheaper, but generally in the spirit of the ordinance. In the spirit of the color law, I think you're supposed to make them fairly in-kind experiences, so, you know, that's the intent of the law. Is to make them feel similar.
And I might add, in the development community, recognize its reputation. Requiring them to be extremely simple.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm proud to say that it's really present. We have a reputation, to be very tough and development as far as it goes. We'll have them build inferior units.
Appreciate the input.
Just one question about if you did say there's a choice to make them, if you make it less dense, you can make the building smaller, correct?
Yes.
So the square footage wouldn't be as crazy big.
Yeah, right now it's
Make
about,
rent like, you know.
15,000 square feet for floor and 15,500 and change. And then the ground floor is like 3,000, so it adds up to just about 49,000
Okay.
square feet, so. Yeah, I'm not gonna build something that doesn't make sense. Space wise, I'll make a small.
Okay, we'll move this along. Anybody from the public got a question for Mr. Monroe? Come on up.
Your mic?
Sure. I'm sorry.
Hello, if you could just state your name and address, please.
Wendy Jiguer, 211 Market Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Jiguer, Giguere.
All right, good evening and welcome. Thank you for coming. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth, to the best of your knowledge, to help you God? Thank you.
So I've lived in Red Bank since 1980, and I've owned my home, which is on block 40, since 1994, so 30 years. So one of my concerns is the traffic, so I agree, I don't like the density. That's number one, I don't like that. Number two, I'm not really certain about the setbacks on the, I guess you're referring to it instead of the streets, the back and the side. The side is made. And I'm not an NIMBY, I'm just trying to make sure that there's a proper 8-foot setback. And you confused me a little when you were talking about parking or road and a 6-foot fence that you might not need that, so.
Yeah, the building is set back the 8 feet, but some of the parking sneaks a little closer. So it's when it's behind the fence, you're not gonna see it.
So this fence is my fence or a fence?
So we have a fence on our site plan.
Okay, but this is just another, just observation that the property, a lot of these properties are owned by somebody other than your client. So what's the situation there?
We're in the contract.
Okay. So.
I'm sorry, Mr. McKenna, what was it?
I'm sorry. We're in the contract.
You're the contract purchaser.
Contract purchase.
Or contract purchase.
From different entities. Subject to approval, there's a timeframe.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone else? Public
Comments or?
question? Question for this witness? You have a question? You can come up. We're looking at questions right now. Do you have a question? No, come up, you gotta come up.
And you know what? I have to swear you in one more time because I swear you in the last application. So just state your name and address one more time.
Timothy Oliveras, live at 77 Shrewsbury Avenue, also on block 40.
Can you bring it closer to you, the microphone?
He said,
You know what? I'm just going to swear you in and speak right into the microphone. Do you swear that the information testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth, the best of your knowledge, to help you God? Thank you. Yeah, and just speak into the mic because you're saying something important and I want everyone to hear it.
one, when he said he was gonna cut down size of just the apartments or the size of the floor. Because where we're at, it's all like 2 stories only, you know, it's not like huge, like what he said. And then he says we're gonna have stuff on the roof, you know,
Well, let's take this one at a time. So Mr. Monroe, her question was about if you reduce the units, is the building size gonna be reduced? I know we've answered that a couple times, but why don't you just give her one more answer?
You said that you could put a step back in the rear also, which is facing Shrewsbury Avenue, just like in the front of the building, so it's step back. So a piece of the building would be step back. I think it'll break up the building and make it feel less massive. And
That's right.
And let me, you just had also a question about the rooftop.
Yeah, that's gonna be like adding another floor to it.
So Mr. Monroe, her question appears to be, is this rooftop gonna make it seem like an additional story?
no, we're only allowed to build stairs and elevators going up to it, so the ordinance encourages you to use the rooftops for activities and for green roof. So they actually want us to have some activity up there in some green space, up to 25% as a minimum. It's anticipated that there'll be a nice outdoor space. The green area that cuts down on water going into the system by as much as all the water hits the plants. So there's lots of benefits to having a green roof. So yes, there's activity planned for up there. I can pull it away from that side. I can make it look. I can lower the parapet on the side and make it seem lower. I have a couple of tricks that you can do, soften that edge. But generally, it's not another story. It's just a railing, but it's a solid railing. It's a roof like a parapet.
Besides any elevator structures, where there'll be above the parapet wall, will there be any trees or structures beyond the parapet wall that they might be able to see from their homes?
There's not very large tree, I mean, fairly compact. There's a window, it doesn't remember, but I like the idea of seeing a little bit of greenery from down below. Maybe not everyone does, but you know, like the corner of that Tower Hill, what used to be the Tower Hill Antiques building. That was always a nice second floor garden roof. Worked on that building a little bit. That came before the board, I think. But I think it's nice to look up and see greenery. I mean, it's not going to be a forest up there, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
That's all about maybe the air conditioning, the fence.
No, that's all I'm seeing.
Things that are gonna be, I mean, the building itself is already be blocking that whole section. Just gonna be blocking. And yes, we're gonna have density, we're gonna have, you know, pollution and a lot of noise. Only what you're gonna have in there, like tire, like. See what it's become. So we will be, especially, how many units. Yes, it's going to add to the whole traffic and yeah, the accidents we've been having there because just people going in rush, so many people.
Okay. One of the board has asked us to provide a shading study to show how the building casts shadows. So that'll be an exhibit next time. It'll be available for people. We'll be able to see how it casts shadows around. But obviously, it's you know, there's no shadows on the north side, and we'll show the shadows from the sun from the south. You'll be able to see where it actually casts a shadow. So you'll have that information.
See a better picture.
Yeah.
Streets are no regulations in the house.
You know what, speak into the microphone, please.
Keep speaking, you gotta talk into the microphone.
Want to see exactly what the building is gonna look like compared to our houses, to the whole section.
Okay,
I
so
think it's a good, I think you'll have site plan diagrams next time, and it's a fair thing to have the whole block picture, so you can sense the entire block. I'm sure where it's arranged, and so, you know.
you'll give us some streetscape so everyone can see what's gonna be.
It's gonna look.
Alright. Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public have a question for Mr. Yes.
It's going to be 25 Cedar Street.
All right, good evening and welcome thank you for coming. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth to the best of your knowledge to help you God? Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned about parking. Obviously, people are going to be moving in and moving out, they're going to have package delivered, they're going to have dog sitters and
business owners and then when they're coming, where would there be a place for these trucks to park? Is that in the garage or is it outside and probably hindering the traffic flow?
So you'll see on the site, and we have the engineer testify next week, there's a proper size loading zone, which meets the requirements. It is off the side street, next to where the entrance is, but there's a designated space for a moving van or delivery truck or something like that. I don't think there was any comments on the loading space that I saw, but there's an ample size loading space on the side street, so no, there won't be any trucks on the street. The ordinance requires a loading zone, and we have a compliant loading zone.
Okay, anybody else from the public have a question for Mr. Monroe? Okay, we'll close that public portion. Comments from the board, any comments anybody wants to make? I think we've kind of heard a bunch from us and from the public. Does the public have any comments they want to make?
Name and address.
Scott Winning, 85 Shrewsbury.
You swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, to the best of your knowledge, to help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
The big problem with this whole project is Oakland Street. It is the neighborhood. So the Bridge Avenue.
Speaking to the mic.
Into the mic.
Bridge Avenue is open. Everyone agreed that the rail should happen. These other apartments should happen. They're empty parking lots. You're knocking down two single family homes that already exist that he doesn't own yet. That he just abandoning a project where down before it.
I didn't abandon it, sold it.
Sold it. So I mean, that's the problem where you see where there's just no parking now. Oh, there's no parking on Shrewsbury now, there's no parking on the bridge now. It's the density is too much, there's too many people, there's too many parking spaces, the overflow. It's just too big with that. I could see it somewhere else in an empty parking lot down the street that you guys are already building apartments. But this is a neighborhood with two perfectly good single family homes that he could sell for a profit, I'm guessing, and keep the neighborhood intact and this kind of thing. And nobody wants a pickleball court on the roof. That's all I'm saying. It's too big, it's too much, and it doesn't really. It's not the area for this size of a. Anyway, I don't know. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment?
Name and address, please.
Anthony Sotero, 135-137 Oakland Street,
And how do you spell your last name, please?
SETMRO.
All right, good evening, and thank you for attending. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth, to the best of your knowledge, to help you God? Thank you.
I have a presentation that I put together that Sean is going to pull up, and while I'm waiting for that, I have two things that I will pass out to people on the zoning board if I may approach. One's the history of Oakland Street, and one is about pickleball noise.
So I'm gonna mark this as P1, P for public.
I have 7 of these, I think, so some people.
We can share.
I can share.
So the first is P1, the history of Oakland Street.
Chairman, if I might, I'm only raising an issue, Mr. Sotero should definitely be heard. The question is this the time? We're not even through our application yet. So I assume this is like a presentation that, that one would normally conclude to take place at the end of the show.
Well, I think there are comments based on you wondering whether you're gonna proceed with going forward with this anyway, so I would think you'd wanna hear from somebody who's gonna make some comments that might help you make a decision whether you're gonna proceed or not.
Oh, no, well, I heard this right. Excuse me, we came to the board tonight seeking comments. I don't think that anyone should conclude that means that we're not gonna be back for you.
No, I didn't say that, but I said you asked for comments on the project and you got them from the board and now we're getting a couple from the audience. I have no problem with that. And I'd like to proceed. All you're doing is holding things up by doing this. Let the man talk and then we'll go forward.
You know, let me just, for the record, so we marked as P1, the history of Oakland Street. And Mr. Sotero, did you prepare this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and is there a date on this? So I'll just, what today's date?
Today's date, I originally prepared this in May, I think, when they first had.
Okay. And then just for the record, we're gonna mark as P2. This is an article on pickleball noise.
Yes.
Okay, and who is the article from?
I think it's the New York Times.
Okay, New York Times, and it's dated, do we see what date?
June 30th.
June 30th. And you've got great eyes, that's good. So June 20th, 2023, so we'll mark that as P2. So June 30th, and what about, Mr. Sotero, did you give a copy of this? Do you have an extra copy to give to Mr. McKenna?
I don't have the pickle.
Here you go. You can keep yours in.
That's right.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Darrow, you can kind of condense this, and not try and drag it on for another.
No, I know, and
I'd
first want
appreciate
to
it.
thank you all for staying late. I know that this is a, highly anticipated project. I know we've been waiting for it, and thank you for giving us the time to speak here. For those of you that don't know me, again, my name is Anthony Sotero. I'm a 5th generation Red Banker. Our family first emigrated to Red Bank in 1888, establishing a colony for Italian people at the foot of Cooper's Bridge. My great grandfather operated a safe house next to the West End Hotel, which is now Brothers Pizza for early Italian Americans. And my great grandparents would go on to purchase a house on Oakland Street in 1934. Several of my aunts lived in that house their entire life. So after my great aunt died, who was the last of 11 children, passed away, my cousin and I purchased a home for the estate, and we were given several boxes of notebooks and photographs. It started this really deep genealogical research and historical research of the town. Growing up, my grandfather would tell us all stories about old Red Bank, the early days when the family would all live together and how he was related to half the town. He would always tell me I was Red Bank Catholic. If I met a girl and her name ended in a vowel, I better talk to him. If I kiss her because I might be related to her. And he always spoke highly.
We're looking for comments.
I'm getting there.
I know, but
It's about the
if you can, I know. But again,
And I'm the history of the town, so I'm giving it to
but
you.
we're trying to make comments on this
I'm
specific
getting-
building.
I'm getting there.
And not-
You gotta get there. I gotta get there.
But
I'm getting there. You're holding me up from getting there. Okay? So a lot of this, the history of the street and the history of the area stems from the Italian people and the Italian culture. And that's the research that I've been into and research on the area. There is no HBC right now. So my presentation is bringing you the history of Oakland Street that a lot of people don't know. So as you can see, those are the houses. There's, the one on the left is already not there anymore, but the two on the right are the houses that we're talking about, this compilation of a bunch of different photos. So you can start. There is in 1898, you can see the Sotero's house is right there. There are no structures across the street at that point. You can move to the next slide. This is the early 1900s. Again, Oakland Street has always been a little sleepy cut through street for people to get to the train, but it's not always been a highly trafficked area. You can use Jay's slide. This is the building on the corner with the New Orleans type balcony. It was built here in 1911, as you can see, Raphael Nicoletti. He built it, and you can see the bricks, right, are really unique on the corner. Well, why did he do that? When you go to the next slide, you can see that he in 1911 matched the building that was already there over by Sickles. And what Sickles did, they kept that design. So there's continuity in the design on Bridge Avenue and Oakland Street, the connectivity. So it'd be really cool if you're talking about design, if you found a way to incorporate something like that into the design of the building, because that's historic. You know, when you talk about the design of this building, keeping with the, design of Red Bank, I don't see it. I see Avenue and Long Branch in your design. I don't see something that fits into the town. Doing something like this, even if it's just a small allusion to it, I think, makes a big difference. Next slide. And that building is historic, the one on the corner, the funky one. The only picture that we have of a sitting president in Red Bank is President Taft here at the train station in May 27th of 1912. He's running for re-election there. And on the next slide, you can see there are people on that balcony. So that building is historic. That building should always be preserved. So I'm glad that you did not get them to sell to you. And anything that we do around this building should have that in mind. Maybe there's American flags along the front of your building. Maybe there's something that honors that. Maybe there's a plaque. Maybe there's anything. You can go to the next one. You can see it then and now. The building looks exactly the same. It's right there. And you can see some of the buildings behind it. And this is the area you can imagine that 4-story building engulfing and encompassing all around that building installed. This is I don't know exactly when those, the two buildings, 132 and 128 or whatever it is. I don't know exactly when they were built, but this is 1922. You can see that they're definitely here on this plan here. You can go to the next one. This is just the article of when my great-grandfather and great-grandmother purchased the home in 1934. This sits directly across from where your parking entrance would be, I believe, somewhere in between this house and my neighbors who are here. This is a family on the side of the house, 1949. You can go to the next one. You can see there's my grandfather over there on the right, and you can see the oak tree. It's the oldest oak tree on Oakland Street. It's there in 1935 and 1939, and that would be cut down according to your plan, I believe. Again, this is just another shot. There's my father crying in the baby carriage. Next slide. Here's another compilation of the streets. You can see it all. Next one. There's the tree on Oakland Street. You can go to the next one. And now, so that one house has already been demolished where there's the Bullet Foundation and everything, is that one house has been demolished. There are those two other Victorian houses that they're talking about. Next one. Here's a little bit of we've been doing, work with a nice article on us. We had put this mural trying to honor the past, trying to honor all the people. Names like Savola, Arnaud, and we all came from the same village in Italy. So everybody was related to town on the Italian side, one way or another. So there's a lot of great names, great family. That's just something that came here, and as we research and dug into this history, our family, our ancestors settled Bridge Avenue. So that's why I was giving the history of the background, because these are the people that settled the area. This is our neighborhood. Go ahead. There's this funky little thing, right, that nobody probably knew what this was. This is in front of, I believe it's 132 Oakland Street. It looks like it's a butter churning thing or milk churning thing. But it's actually a little replica of Mount Vesuvius that the Italians had put. If you looked at a picture of Mount Vesuvius, you would see it curves kind of like that. Why is it there? Why do we know it's there? You can go to the next slide. Here's the Gardens, which of course where Vito Genovese lived, and he had this built. So there's another one, a little replica there on Oakland Street. Because this was his neighborhood that he would come. There's Vito Genovese, frequented the station barber shop on Bridge Avenue, Red Bank, New Jersey, for 20 years. And the barber shop on Sunday mornings, accompanied by anyone, he usually parked his car in Rocco, we are at the barber shop. He would be drinking from my uncle's. But to the next. You can see there's the station barber shop right there on the corner. We go to the next slide. And that was his route, that he would come through the back. That's why all those courtyards are there. Everybody always wonders why are all the balconies over in the back? It's because they were protecting the boss when he came into town. And they were all lookout spots. And he would walk through the little alleyway between the two houses. And then he would come down the alleyway next to this Carroll house and go and visit a man by the name of Frank Patillo. You can go to the next slide there. He would come through that alleyway, that house on the left is the one that's knocked down, the one on the right, 130 is 132. It'd be nice if you're looking for features, if you put a replica water tower on top of your building. I think that would be really cool. If you're looking to honor anything. Go to the next slide. There was an axe on this wall by this Taro house. My great grandmother used to feed people that would come on the train. It was, as I said, mentioned it, the old Satara house was a safe house, and they kind of continued this tradition nearby when they moved to this house in 1934. And she would kind of feed the hungry, feed the homeless, feed whoever was out there. So there was a little X, but that was also the X, obviously, for Vito to know that that's the spot. So we come through this alley, right by the house, and we can go to the next slide. To this shed, which encroaches on our property, but it is there and it's been there for a long time. How do I know? Go to the next slide. Frank Patillo, there he is. He lived at 107 Shrewsbury Avenue. His brother won the Indianapolis 500 in 1935, and his house was right there next to his townhouse, right on Shrewsbury Avenue. Go to the next slide. The kids played it in this alleyway. They shouted numbers games. They played this numbers games in the alleyway. The county raided and caught everybody in 1937. That's when Vito flees to Italy. That's the history of this. And if you go to the next slide, there's the man walking down. I obviously come to those photos, but that is a photo that I. And that's the shed right there, and that's the little gateway over into Frank Patillo's property there. And Vito was engaged at one point to Frank's daughter. You go to the next slide there. His furniture, he was an antique dealer and restored furniture, and his furniture is still in that shed. I don't know what's going on, but it's still in there. It's still full of antique furniture. You can go to the next slide. Those are the two houses that we're talking about. They don't look terrible, do they? You know, we're talking about knocking down 2 single-family homes. They do have multiple apartments in them now. But we're talking about knocking down for 2 single-family homes that are getting 32 units. So it is very concerning for people that have hungry.
So did you say there are multiple families in those houses?
Yeah, you can see there's like 2 mailboxes.
So they're not single family homes.
They were single.
But they're not now.
I guess not.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
You said they are single-family homes, they are not currently.
I'm not the zoning person,
Okay.
I don't
No,
know.
I'm just-
Yeah, yeah, no.
Single family means one family,
Right,
not
right,
multiple.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Yeah, I don't know how many apartments are in check this point, you know, probably two. You can go to the next. Slide. This is not the actual design, but you can start to get a sense of, this is the scale of the building. I do this stuff for a living, you know, renderings, and we do this stuff. I didn't have the actual materials or things that they've been working with, but we wanted to get an idea of what the size and scope would be. That little white building on the right would be what it would look like, that building on the corner with this mass of a building around it. We can go to the next one. There would be for the train station, again, you can see it dwarfing the little building on the side and dwarfing the buildings across the street. But kind of in line with the rail, and I think to a lot of people's point, you are claiming that it's the same neighborhood as the rail, but it's really not, because you're now encroaching onto the other side of Bridge Avenue. And if we start a precedent in town of knocking down homes, single family or multi-family, they are houses. Or in between Bridge and Shrewsbury, is Chestnut Street okay to do that on? Are other streets okay to do that on, or is it just because it has frontage on Bridge? So that's, you know, one of our concerns is you're encroaching into an area now between Bridge and Shrewsbury, putting these massive developments instead of between Bridge and the train tracks. That's a way different thing. Next slide. Again, pre-visualization, these are not the actual things, although if you look at his, it looks pretty close. Again, this is what the mass and size would be. So one of the thoughts was, if you're looking for ideas, is maybe do something patriotic or something, you know, a nod to the area with a mural or something on that space. I don't know if that's what your living wall was gonna be, on that stepped inside, you know, by the, by where the balcony building is. You know, I don't know, in that L, there's a lot of space there to maybe do something actually really, really great. Next one.
That's the last one.
That's it.
Yep.
So that's it, and then I have just a few concerns that I will talk about. One of the biggest ones is, Shauna, about a month and a half ago, you gave a great presentation at a council meeting about transit village designation. What happens if the board here were to pass this and then transit village designation comes out? Would it put this in effect, like nullify it if they don't conform to those? Or does this get rushed through, but then a new thing comes out, and even though it doesn't conform to that, it already passed, so it doesn't apply to the new designation?
The transit village designation doesn't change the zoning for this area. It's just a designation that suggests any development that's within the quarter-mile radius. Half-mile radius, it conforms to transit-oriented development standards.
Right, and what I'm saying is.
But it doesn't change the zoning, so this will always be, if it's a BR2 zone, if it's a VNV zone, whatever zone it is, it stays that. It doesn't change the underlying zoning unless it's a redevelopment area or unless the zone changes the standards.
And that could happen, right?
It all depends on what the area is. Like
Right.
if the lot is included within a redevelopment area, or if the lot is included in a zone change.
Right, I guess my point is that hasn't been decided yet, right? Because we
Correct.
haven't actually gotten that, and this is dangerously close to the train station, so it very well could be included in that area. Right, and if that happens, there could be different set of requirements that would be needed for development. If I understand that correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, so to me, it seems putting the cart before the horse of like, we want to get this transit village status to get these specific development requirements for this area, and yet here we are with the developer trying to get something in right before it. That's just my concern, is that I would argue for anybody to make a rational decision to wait if we're talking about doing this stuff, because we don't know what they're gonna come out with. Just a couple of quick other things, the pickleball on the roof, I shared the article. Pickleball's great, but you don't want it across the street from you. There are countless lawsuits going on with people that have done developments like this, that and the noise is just absolutely insane. And it's just ping over and over. And we have old houses there, so we can hear everything. And yes, we're by the train, so we do hear the train, but the train is kind of like a soothing, smooth thing I can hear. Rather than this like thing that you hear all the time. Parking has been brought up. There is not a lot of parking on the street. I know I have tenants that have several, cars. They might have 3 cars, and 2 of them, we only have 1, parking spot in their driveway, so they might have multiple spots. When you do this development, it looks like you would be removing some of the spots on the street, I would think. So we would be losing actually public parking because of their development. And I don't see any parking for your retail spaces. How is parking being provided for the retail spaces? Is there any?
It's envisioning the 7 spaces outside the building, more for retail. It's envisioning to be walk up to, there's no one's gonna drive across town to get a cup of coffee there. So I mean, envision that you staff that traffic where the people are there already, when that makes sense. And we have a traffic expert already did all of the studies that there's a tremendous amount of available parking on bridge at certain times in the morning when the coffee shop might be there. So I think in reality, it's not a big traffic generator. That's why we're not looking to get a huge amount of retail there. It's just something to get some sort of activity, which I think would be nice for streetscape.
Okay. And the big thing I think for us that are on Oakland Street is the parking entrance and the loading zone and the garbage is all on our street. And you've referred to it several times as the side street and the whatever, like it's this afterthought. And being the Oakland Street people, that's where people live. Nobody lives on Bridge. Nobody cares. It's beautiful, that you want to make that side, but I look at the rail and across from St. Anthony's, there's a big sign above their parking garage that says rent the rail, 544, whatever. It's like, are we gonna be staring at something that says rent the whatever you call this thing, building where for 100 years, we've had 2 Victorian houses. And now we're gonna be staring at parking entrances and loading zones and garbage pickup. And how does garbage get picked up? Because the Delisa trucks, are they gonna go in, or is it a different garbage company would have to come in and back in and pick up those dumpsters?
It comes in through the loading zone, so it's all in the same dual duty spot, and the trash is held way back from the street, so it's incorporated at the edge of the building.
Okay. And the porches you had mentioned, would there be porches on units on Oakland Street?
It's outside the building, so that's the best place to have them.
Not for people that live there. You have 2 wraparound porches on 2 apartments right now. And how many porches would you add that we would have people now outside, probably at night, hanging out on their porches, balconies or whatever at 2nd floor levels or 3rd floor levels where people sleep. So it's a big difference for people that live there. Looking down into us or at us, so it's a big difference. And let's all be realistic, the rentals, if they're 1,000 square feet or even a pure real estate agent, they're gonna be $3,800. They're not gonna be affordable for people. There's nowhere where there's $1,800 apartments, no matter what size. 20 units, 32 units, they're not gonna be affordable. Regardless, that's just my comments. That's it. That's all I got right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, we got a gentleman in the back.
Name and address, please.
Alan Hill, 64 McLaren Street.
All right, good evening. Do you swear that the information and testimony you're about to provide, to the extent you provide any, will be the truth, the best of your knowledge, so help you God?
So,
Thank you.
thank you to Mr. Sotero for that really interesting history of his family and also the
This is quite an historic area, irrespective of that. In fact, what's comes down to me is that there's one of the very few science ghost sites, in that block. I'm referring to the signs on the side of, I think it's the 90-degree gallery. There are at least 4 significant ghost signs there. One for Cinderella, the deli. One for Wrigley's chewing gum, and 2 others that are much more difficult to see, although you can bring them out with photography. It's, some people are going to say, well, so what? I think these are important vestiges or ephemera from a bygone era, commercial and sociological interest, that other towns actually go to great lengths to actually preserve. I think at Long Branch, where they found a Pepsi sign on the wall, the house that was being demolished, they actually then removed that wall for recycling. Complete. That is how important it is. You can tell from my accent, I'm not from around here, but in my own country, the National Preservation Board, which is a government thing, has compiled a directory, an atlas of ghost signs across the country. So all I'm saying is we are very quick in Red Bank to ignore the historical part. At the moment, there's no one to defend the historical links in the town anyway. And I would like the board, I'd like the developers to actually show a little bit more respect for history. It's not much, it's just history of ordinary things. It's history that we need to keep. Thank you.
We got a couple more minutes, so if you want to come up.
Let's go to 25 Cedar Street.
Still under oath. Thank you.
Excellent presentations today. I really think people put a lot of time and effort in, actually the PowerPoint presentation. With that being said, I was mentioned earlier that the next meeting you're going to have like the parking and the traffic study. I asked every one of you guys, drive down Bridge, drive through that area about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then about after 4:30 to about 5:30. Do your own study. It is a pain in the neck. I live off a bridge. I don't leave my house after 4. Sometimes I can move to these meetings because just I can't even leave a parking spot on my street. It's so bad. So yes, who's going to pay for a parking study and top state doesn't agree? Hey, let's build X, Y, and Z. Let's be honest. I wouldn't pay for something that's going to contradict what I want. So use your experience, take the time, I will pull you guys and try it. So yes, there is a building across that has 4 stories, right, wrong, or different. It's here, it's gonna stay. I don't know if it's filled up yet, I don't know if it's renting, but doesn't mean we have to keep doing that, does it? I mean, there's 2 beautiful, not single family homes, but it looks like a single family home. I have 2 apartments in it, looks great. And the people that live on Oakland seem like they have a vested interest, but also expectations. This is what the street has been like for years. I'm not saying again, I'm against change, but how much change? So again, I ask you guys to think, what are you doing? Yes, not all of us get to live on the east side, District 1 and stuff, but look real. Do you want something massive come up near your home that you have no expectations? So again, I just think you guys leave your own traffic study, drive down that street and fill up across the street.
Okay, close the public portion. Comments, anything you'd like to say, Mr. McKenna?
No, I would suggest, based upon what I anticipate the changes to plans, that rather than carrying this to a particular date, that we go back to amend it. Okay, so then we wouldn't necessarily ask you to carry it to the next available date.
Stick it to them.
On this. I think in the best interest of everyone, probably what we would do is we're gonna go back with an amended plan, which might also impact part, either part of the traffic reports and the engineering. So rather than ask you to carry us to a date that could very well be artificial, I would suggest that we will be filing an amended plan. And then we'll get a new date.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, so that means, just so that we're all on the same page, you're gonna renotice?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you'll do a new notice, and then even though it's amended application, it's still gonna be a continuation of this presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so so that way, okay, so we're gonna then,
And obviously, we're extending to an extension of time.
awesome. Okay, so we're going to then, the request is that we adjourn this to at some point in the future. We're not giving it a date, so the applicant will renotice. So those of you, we would normally say we're coming back on X date, you're not gonna get a new notice, but Mr. McKenna is offering to do a new notice when he and his team meet and they can decide if they're gonna revise the plans, how they're gonna revise the plans, and then they're gonna submit it as part of an amended application. And we will continue, so all the comments that you made tonight are still part of the record. Any board members who are not here will listen. And so we're gonna do this, and Mr. McKenna consented to extend the time frame within which the board has to act. We always appreciate that. So that's it. We're going to adjourn this application to some point in the future with new notice required. Can we have a motion to that effect?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
All right, I'll second.
And we could do all in favor.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, the time and, thank you all for coming.
Then.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Sean, it just